In recent years, the People's Republic of China has been quietly but methodically reaching an entirely new level of military development. And this is no longer just about modernizing the army or increasing troop numbers, but about creating a fundamentally different form of warfare that the world may not yet be ready for. According to insiders from several Western intelligence agencies cited by think tanks and publications such as Bloomberg and the Financial Times, China is rapidly integrating robotic systems into the structure of the People's Liberation Army, and the pace and scale of these processes far exceed anything previously seen in other countries. Sources claim that under long-term programs disguised as civilian initiatives in industrial automation and AI, Chinese military structures have been purchasing and adapting huge quantities of humanoid and non-humanoid robots for several years, numbering not in thousands or even hundreds of thousands, but in millions of units. These machines are not soldiers in the conventional sense, but step by step are becoming fully fledged combat elements integrated into a unified digital and command infrastructure. Certainly, even the most advanced models are still far from perfect and cannot fully replace humans on the battlefield. But as analysts at CSIS and RAND Corporation emphasize, the alarming factor is not the current state of technology, but the speed at which China is closing this gap. Unlike Western countries, where the deployment of new military systems is constrained by bureaucracy, ethical debates, and political limits, Beijing operates in a mode of total resource mobilization, with decisions made centrally and executed without delay. Intelligence sources claim that the Chinese military sees robots not as a replacement for soldiers at the first stage, but as a means of radically changing the balance of power. Machines are used for reconnaissance, logistics, security, assault operations, and saturating the battlefield with expendable units. This is where the key difference from the approach of the US and its allies emerges. For China, the human factor ceases to be a limitation and becomes an option. Analysts note that Chinese military doctrines increasingly feature the concept of continuous pressure, in which the adversary faces waves of forces that do not require rest, rotation, evacuation of the wounded, or morale support. Robots do not feel fear, do not tire, do not hesitate, and execute orders to completion. And according to Chinese strategists, this capability can break the resistance of even technologically advanced opponents. Special attention is paid to integrating artificial intelligence into the command of such formations, and insiders say that China is betting not on individual autonomous fighters, but on a collective intelligence, a network in which thousands or tens of thousands of machines exchange data in real time, adapting to the situation faster than humans can process it. Experts note that with this approach, the role of human operators gradually shifts to oversight and setting general objectives, while tactical decisions are made by algorithms. This is why Pentagon reports increasingly warn of a loss of temporal advantage, where decision-making speed becomes the decisive factor. Notably, just a few years ago, Chinese military robots were mocked in Western media, clumsy humanoids that fell, lost balance, and looked more like exhibition experiments. However, those closely following technological development emphasize that this stage was inevitable and temporary. Modern models already demonstrate the ability to maintain balance, traverse difficult terrain, interact with each other, recognize objects, and even participate in hand-to-hand training. Moreover, Chinese companies closely linked to the state are actively developing AI models that learn in simulations faster than any soldier can complete real-world training. Analysts estimate that due to the scalability of such systems, China could create in years, not decades, an army fundamentally different from anything that has existed before. Against this backdrop, comparisons with the US look increasingly unfavorable for Washington. Yes, the US military is also developing autonomous systems, drones, and AI, but the level of robotization in the US Army remains limited, and many projects stall due to complex approval procedures and public pressure. While China tests technologies in real conditions and rapidly implements successful solutions, the US often remains at the prototype and pilot program stage. This is why, according to some experts, a qualitative breakthrough may occur in the coming years when the quantity and speed of deployment begin to outweigh technological sophistication. The most alarming aspect of this development is that AI makes it possible to command such armies without constant human involvement. And this is no longer science fiction, but a logical continuation of current trends. Imagine a force that requires no sleep, food, medical care, or morale, that acts in synchrony, is immune to panic, and executes any order without hesitation. Analysts believe this is precisely the scenario China is aiming for, viewing robotic forces as a tool of strategic dominance. Intelligence agency reports emphasize that once a critical mass of such systems is reached, the country that first deploys them fully will gain an almost insurmountable advantage. And although today these robots still appear imperfect and far from science fiction imagery, the speed of progress indicates that the line between machine and soldier will be erased much sooner than commonly assumed. Experts warn that in the coming years, we may see a shift from experimentation to doctrine, where robotic units will become not a supplement, but the foundation of offensive and defensive operations. In this context, it becomes clear that these machines are not intended to be benevolent helpers for humans. In the hands of the powerful, they become instruments of pressure and suppression, a force capable of changing the rules of the game at a global level. This is why more analysts are saying that we are on the threshold of a new era of warfare, where the decisive factor will be not population size or even the economy, but the ability to create and command armies free from human limitations. And if China manages to cross this threshold first, the consequences for the global balance of power will be truly irreversible. Analysts note that using machines allows Beijing to act far more aggressively without fearing public backlash over personnel losses, meaning the threshold for using force is significantly lowered. Moreover, insiders report that China is actively developing scenarios for the joint use of robots, drones, and cyber units, where physical impact on the adversary is combined with attacks on their information and energy infrastructure. In such a conflict, robots become not just fighters, but elements of a unified mechanism capable of paralyzing a state in a matter of days. Experts warn that this approach is what makes the new Chinese strategy particularly dangerous, as it is almost impossible to counter with conventional methods. Armies built around humans are slower, more vulnerable, and constrained by morale. And the further technology advances, the clearer it becomes that the world is entering an era where the decisive factor will not be soldier bravery or even the amount of equipment, but the ability of a state to command machines that fight without hesitation and without limits. This is why many analysts describe these developments not as an evolution of weaponry, but as the beginning of a fundamentally new phase in world history, the full consequences of which humanity has yet to grasp.